All right. Good morning, everybody. If you're kind
Good
of
morning.
following in here, we're gonna get started in about 10 minutes to give people time to join. But thanks for joining. We'll kick this off in about 10 minutes and do some introductions and get right into it.
Yeah, so small talk. We went to HIMSS last week. Saw Andy out there and others. It was a good show.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of great things. I saw Chris is on the call. I saw Chris's demo. It's getting a lot of clicks on LinkedIn. Pretty cool stuff with the Imprivata plugin. But yeah, just an awesome show.
HIMSS is always a difficult one to reach the attendees. They seem to all go towards the pure healthcare type vendors booths like Epic and all those, but it's still a really good show because we were within the Igel booth, Liquidware was, and the Citrix Ready booth was around the corner. So we got to see a lot of friendly people and friendly faces there for alliances like Nerdio and Remo 3, Igel, a few others.
Very cool. Very cool.
We also got to do go-kart racing. So
oh yeah, how'd you do?
it was fun. We went to Andretti's, where Igel was primarily had secured the space, but it was all the Igel Ready partners that were co-sponsoring it, including us. And we did that before with Igel at a Microsoft Ignite show, but it was so packed that we didn't get a chance to race. But we did get a chance to race this time, and those cars are fast. They're electric cars. Have you done that?
And I haven't done go-kart since I was a kid down at the boardwalk at the Jersey Shore. I mean, we'd always do them down there, but those were not very fast. Those were tiered down a bit.
Yeah. I guess we should say we're making small talk while other people join us in case people are joining us, and we'll get started. But the Andretti thing is pretty neat. They must have some RFID chip and the ability to remotely send a signal to the cars because they throttle them when you take off, and they're just kind of in a limp mode until you get so far down the track, and then you can use the full accelerator, and then it does the same thing at the end. But they're pretty fast. You have to wear a helmet, and it occurred to me that it could do serious damage if you did wreck it, but it was fun.
And pure electric, huh?
Yeah, they have a simulated noise, where it sounds like a gas powered car, but they charge them. I noticed they charge them in between cycles too. They had them hooked up in the go-kart station, like you would traditionally have a go-kart. Everybody had a plug. You didn't do it yourself. The workers did it, but they'd make sure they were topped off every time.
And I can imagine like all the go-kart enthusiasts I've ever known, they're like love working on engines. I gotta imagine the electric go-kart is not very popular with them.
Right.
For me, it's great though. I love it. That's I can't fix anything in my car, so the less moving parts, the better.
Yeah, it's certainly different. I've seen some of those things. Again, we're making small talk while people join us, but I've seen some of those new vehicles, like the Ford F-150 has what do they call it? It's a forward trunk. It's got some. It may have a unique name to it. You open up the hood, and it's a huge trunk to the new electric F-150.
Yeah, that's like I noticed that with the Tesla, right? You can, the hood becomes storage, which is great. I never thought about it until somebody popped the hood for it. I'm like, wow, that's fit all your groceries in there, whatever.
Right.
All right. So see, we got about 30 people, 30 participants joined. Where are we at? 5. We'll give another 5 minutes here.
It's good to see in-person events coming back. I know Zentegra, y'all are doing a lot of them too at sports arenas and things like that. And we've co-sponsored some of those together with Zentegra.
Yep. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, as soon as the pandemic hit, it was like, so much shut down. I mean, it was our way of life completely changed, right? With the events and everything. So it's just amazing. It's just great to be in person, meeting people face to face. We did, I was at the Flyers game event last week. We had a game last night or 2 nights ago in Orlando for the Orlando Magic. You know, and just awesome. So good to get together with partners and customers and, you know, have that normalcy again. I'll tell you the Flyers game too. I'm a big Flyers fan. That was when I started planning that event, they were in playoff contention, and I might be the reason they were so bad this year. Because as soon as we started planning it, they tanked. They're like tied for last right now. But they had one of their best players, Claude Giroux. It ended up being his 1,000th game and his last game. So he played in that right before they traded him. And the place was like, it was like a playoff atmosphere. So we really lucked out on that one. We just happened to have a really great game to attend. Because
I saw some of the pictures on social media or on LinkedIn. They looked like I had fun.
Yeah, it was a great time. It really was. All right. How about you, Jason? Have you gotten out to any of the
we did a Hawks game with Nerdio about 3 weeks ago. They invited us and allowed us to invite a few people. That was fun. And again, it was good to get out. I had just had COVID in January. So while taking COVID seriously, it was also good to have the sense of I've got some natural antibodies again here, and I can go out and enjoy things. So I didn't mean to make light of COVID, as we know everybody's had a friend or personal connection that suffered greatly in some cases. So, but it is good to get back out and see people in person.
Totally agree. Totally agree. All right. Let's see. 33 joined. For anyone joining, we're just, you know, kind of chatting here. We're going to kick it off in 2 minutes. Give everybody a chance to join. See some people talking in the chat here. Morning, Jorge. Morning, Jack. And just so you guys know, we'll be monitoring the chat. So, you know, as we kind of go through this, feel free to put questions in there, comments, you know, and we have enough panelists here. We can kind of, by committee, make sure you guys get addressed as you're putting the questions in there. I should have a countdown here. That would be more interesting.
I'm sitting in Alpharetta, Georgia area, 55 degrees outside right now and sunny.
It's been an incredible year, huh? It's like 50 one day, 80 the next, you know, so back and forth. Yeah, we're about the same, very cloudy right here in Philly. All right, we're at 11:10, guys. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off.
Let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. Let's do this thing. Real quick note here, guys. You'll see in the chat, Claire put in there that we are going to be sending out the Grubhub vouchers. So those will be good for today. It expires, I think they said 11:59. So, you know, we're actually at midnight. So use it by 11:59. If you can find anything open that late, you can still use it. Yummy, yummy, says Jorge. Very good. All right, so those will be emailed out to you, and you know you can order as we're doing the call here or later on. All right, so let's kick this thing off. So we're going to be doing this first of many workshops here. We plan for this to be a monthly technical workshop with Zentegra and Igel, and today we have the privilege of also joining us as Liquidware. So we'll have Chris Feeney from Igel. and we have Jason and Thomas from Liquidware. So we're going to be getting into the idea of repurposing devices, right? It's obviously it's a very hot topic issue right now with all the chip shortages, hardware, lead times, everything like that. So we're going to talk about how you can leverage Liquidware and Igel in order to repurpose your existing hardware and save your company money, and ultimately become the hero who saves your company money. So let's go ahead and kick it off. I'm going to start out here with the introduction on Zentegra. Let me see here if I can click my button. There we go. Real quick, just as an introduction, my name is Patrick Toner. I currently live in the Philadelphia area. Been in the end user compute space about 12 years. I joined Zentegra back in November, so fairly new to working for Zentegra. But before that, I was an Igel sales engineer for about 4 years. I'm an Igel certified architect, and father of 4 children. If you look at the picture there, I had 2 children then. There's more grays now with the additional 2 children. So that explains anything you might be thinking there. And just a few things about Zentegra. We do a lot of events. We're very event driven at Zentegra. Jason and I were chatting about some of the live sports events we're doing. So we are all about trying to get people together, whether, we have to do it virtually now due to some of the lingering effects of the pandemic. But also we're pushing for doing live events. So you can check out which events are going on in your local area at events.zentegra.com. We also do webinars. We usually do them on Wednesdays. A little bit more of today we're going to be doing a workshop. It's going to be a little more technical than what a webinar would be, but you can check out the webinars there, get a little bit more of the company messaging for all of our different vendors. We also do monthly podcasts. Chris Feeney, who's on, he does one with Igel with our founder, Andy Whiteside. We do one for Citrix, VMware, Azure Virtual Desktop. So we do them, and they're very just meaningful. If you're in the industry and you're just trying to stay current with what's going on, they're just really awesome podcasts to listen to and to stay informed. But who is Zentegra? Maybe some of you guys know us from before, but for anyone who might not, let me just give you a quick intro. And this is a quote from our founder, Andy Whiteside. He said, Zentegra was born out of a need for customer enablement and true partnerships. And I'll tell you, firsthand, as somebody who worked for one of the technology partners, Igel, it was always very obvious to me that Zentegra was all about bringing true partnership. Of course, we were founded that way, but I think what you see today is there's a lot of companies out there who fall under the category of VAR, value added reseller. And what we really try to emphasize on is that V, adding value to our partners, to our customers. And that's our approach, in the way we do things. We're not just transactional. We don't just show up when, it's time to cut a PO. We live and breathe this stuff, all the different technology partners, which we'll talk about here. And that's our approach. Here's the company. I'm going to have to Photoshop myself in here, or maybe make sure I get into the next one. I believe this picture was taken with Zentegra winning Citrix Partner of the Year back in 2018 or 19. And, through the years, there's been a lot of, Partner of the Year, Igel 2020. Zentegra's done just a real nice job of winning these type of partner awards. Here's just a look at some of our customers. Quite a few logos on the screen. There's actually a few new ones we haven't added yet. And if you want to check out all of our technology partners, we list all of them. You can go to partners.zentegra.com. If you're interested in certain technologies, a lot of the things we do, it's all about end user compute in the digital workspace. So, when you talk about digital workspace, end user compute, all those technologies, Citrix, VMware, Azure Virtual Desktop, Amazon Web Services with Workspace ONE, and all of the technologies that touch that, things like Igel and Liquidware. Those are the types of technologies we're really living and breathing on a day-to-day basis. We also have a few other companies. We have Zentegra Connect. So we can host all of your technology needs if you want to do that. If you don't maybe want to go with the big guys for whatever reason, we have a fully hosted model. We can do MSP, so managed services, and manage, and whether we can fully manage it for you, we can just host it for you. Whether you're talking Citrix, VMware, whatever. And then here's kind of our focus partner list, just at a high level. So today, obviously, we're focused on two of the big ones, Igel and Liquidware. But these are if you asked us what technologies we're mostly focusing on, Citrix, Microsoft, Amazon, Nutanix, ServiceNow, VMware, and of course Igel and Liquidware. This is kind of our main focus. So we can also do staffing. Just to side note, if you need staffing in any of these areas, we can do that as well. And if you're ever looking for a position, you want to maybe move on, we can help you get you staffed. Or if you're someone who hires, we can do that for you as well. We can help you get the right people. All right. Last thing I'll kind of plug here, we do a free micro assessment. That word free is actually free, no cost to you. Your environment with Citrix, we can come in and we'll go through your entire environment with you. It's about a 4-hour engagement. And then we give you a write-up of everything we found in your environment. And it's a great way to kind of just see where, make sure everything is on the up and up in your environment. And we can then come in behind it and help you get things resolved. So if you need anything here, whether it's a quote, plan, feel free to reach out. Now that you kind of know our offering, at the end here, we'll kind of, give a call to action if you want to, if you have any questions, we'll give plenty of time at the end. We can talk through it. But yeah, that's Zentegra in a nutshell. And I'm going to hand it over in here in a second, but I just wanted to kind of, again, just emphasize what we're talking about today and why it's so important. This is not news to any of you guys, right? We're all living through this. We're all having the same problems. But this was an article from, what's today's date? This was 2 days ago. Global computer chip storage shortage could last for years. I'm hearing that we're going to have an increase, as much as 20% increase on hardware in the coming weeks here with a lot of vendors. So, a lot of things going on, and this is not going to end anytime soon. It affects all of us. And, so the solutions we're going to be talking about today is a great way to kind of hedge against this. It's a great way to take inventory of what you have in your environment and repurpose it. And, we all have laptops and desktops and old thin clients. They're just laying around in your data closets, right? You probably have stacks of them somewhere. You're like, yeah, I probably need to donate these. If you have that, you're in good shape because you actually don't need to donate them. You can repurpose them and you can hedge against all of these crazy increases in cost and lead times and everything like that, and give your end users a great experience. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to do some introductions here. I'm going to start with Chris Feeney from Igel, someone who is a former colleague of mine. And actually, before I was at Igel on the customer side, Chris was at Imprivata, and we worked in that capacity together too. So, Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, appreciate it. I had to laugh because our first week on the job at Igel, I was like, why do I recognize Patrick Toner's name? And then I realized I was your customer success manager the week before when you were at, I think it was Cooper, maybe, or whatever it was. Yeah. And I was like, wait. And I was just like, this is awesome. So anyways, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. And then we also have, you want to go ahead?
I forgot. I'm the channel pre-sales engineer. I basically am all about enablement and helping partners understand what we do. I hope if you're not familiar with Igel, hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about it today. And so that's what we're all about. But I'm very excited that we've got our friends from Liquidware on here. Jason Smith, I've known him for a number of years, and I'm going to hand it over to him.
Thanks, Chris. We also met when you were at Imprivata.
It's a small world.
Yep, our Profile Unity solution gets a handoff from a single sign-on solution like that, and then we handle the logon process. But I am over alliances and product marketing management over here at Liquidware, and been on board since the first year Liquidware was around, 2009. I came on board through the Profile Unity acquisition, and then expanded out what I was doing with the organization as it grew. And Thomas?
Thank you, Jason. Like Jason, I've been with the organization for almost since its inception in 2009. You'll see that as a common thread within Liquidware, which is a rare thing. Focus on product and more specifically intelligence behind the product. So today I'll be talking a little bit about how you can use Stratosphere combined with XenTegra IP intelligence and brain cells, and of course, Igel's information and knowledge base about hardware.
Great. Thank you, guys. So, now that we kind of know everybody, Chris, if you would do a quick introduction of Igel, the technology, and how people can use it, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Just a quick, what is our vision really? And this really kind of transforms. If you know our CEO, Jed Ayers, he's very big on, and just, he's got a huge heart. I'll just tell you that. And really, when you think about it, what we're trying to do is disrupt the status quo. In fact, our conferences, we call them disrupt, because we're really on a path here where for many years, 30-something years, we've been on this path where Windows or some other operating system is generally what you would go out the door. But now that's changed with cloud computing, and here we are faced with devices that like this old laptop from Dell that's completely invisible, but it's fine. It's got a Core i5 on it, 6 gigs of RAM, and when it runs Igel on it, it's honestly not a bad laptop to use. And otherwise, it was destined for the junk pile. But if it can solve a problem, maybe there's a school-age kid that could use a device that just gets them to a web browser to do their work, whatever. That's really kind of what we're trying to do is have a better outcome for people, organizations, helping them save money, and certainly the planet. There's a ton of e-waste out there, and if there's a way we can take those devices and use them just with a better operating system to help derive the outcome of a better experience. And so, moving on, obviously we've experienced a lot of this, and in the last, really for me, in the last few months, but certainly probably late in the fall, began to do in-person events again after almost 2 years of not. And we're seeing this hybrid work where people are returning to an office, although it may not be the same as what it was, but also still remaining and working from home. And so applications have certainly taken Teams, for example. How many new updates for Zoom and Teams and WebEx have come as a result of trying to better the experience for customers, their users, and people in a world where we do this a majority of the day. And so and then ongoing, keeping them happy. And so this is not just a hybrid means of accessing applications locally or through a browser or through a virtual workspace, but now a remote workforce this is pretty much the norm. And really, that presents a lot of old and new challenges. Now we got to figure out, okay, how do we manage, the devices? How do we manage those apps? And how do we keep things secure, especially in a rising world of, what's the latest in the news in terms of security hacks today? It seems like it's never ending on that. And perhaps you've actually been exposed or experienced that in your organization. Certainly, hopefully you'll learn a little bit today about the security aspects that we can bring. And then finally, at the end of the day, the experience for the users. How do we make that a great experience? Because if it's not, I can't really do my job very well, and that we just need it to work. And that's really what we're trying to focus on, is making it just work. And so, and all of that in a world of virtual workspaces, right? So if you can go to the next slide, I'm just going to plow through these real quickly here. Igel's really focusing on addressing security experience and management challenges. You may have a great virtual workspace, could be via a virtual desktop, it could be just apps, whatever browser, doesn't really matter. How we can address these challenges, and it's really about providing that ultimate endpoint for virtual workspaces that combines all three of these things. If you could skip ahead to really the next slide after that, this little, we call it the bingo chart. These are the reasons why customers are coming to Igel. They have VDI headaches. They have gone to virtual desktops, or they want to, but they have to solve these problems. And they experience them, and through the partnerships we have with Liquidware and others, we can kind of help you identify what the problem might be and how to address them, whether it's from an endpoint or something in the middle, or ultimately on the back end where the user works from. And so later today, we're going to talk about how to put the operating system, and that's really what it is, a Linux-based OS, onto the device. So the next slide, I'm just going to touch on that and then hand it over to our friends here. Igel is an operating system. Let's not forget that. An operating system. And also, by the way, if you thought Igel was a hair product from Apple, I'm here to educate you on that. It is not. That's why it's an uppercase acronym, IGEL, not lowercase I with something else. Nope. Today, we're going to learn that Igel is an acronym for Intelligent German Electronics. Big shout out to our friends in Germany, where the company started 20 years ago. We celebrated our birthday in December. And so Igel is the word in German. It's called Igl, and that is the word for hedgehog. And that's not a porcupine, it's a hedgehog. So if you ever come to an event, you might get a chance to see one of these little cuties, and or perhaps the Legoized version of it for your kids. Or maybe it's you still playing with Legos. You know, we still have them. Anyway, so there are several options, but we're going to talk and focus really on taking those existing devices that you see in number 1 and how to put Igel on those. And so we'll get to that in a little bit, but now it's time to hear from our friends from Liquidware. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chris. I hadn't heard that before about the Apple hair gel. That would make too much sense, though.
Believe me.
Maybe we should make that.
Not a hair product.
Right. So Liquidware, let me tell you a little bit about Liquidware, and I'll try not to get too commercial because this is a workshop, but we do want to make you aware of things that you may have access to through Zentegra, through our partnership with Igel. We'll come back around to focusing on monitoring and diagnostics because that's what today is about in this workshop. But Liquidware is in the area of digital workspace management. And as you can see on this slide, it may start to occur to you, if you have Citrix or if you have VMware, I have some profile tool. I have some access to app layering with Citrix, or I have some monitoring from Citrix or VMware. And while that's true, we would designate those as tools a lot of times that work within your Citrix stack, your VMware stack, or whatever you may have. And if you think about digital workspace management in the way that Liquidware provides it, we support, look at the bottom there, virtual cloud and physical desktops, all your Windows desktops all the time for all your user experiences that go across there. So it's another way of thinking about managing your users. And when you do this, we support all versions of the Microsoft operating system. And usually that means still from Windows 7 all the way to Server 22 with Windows 11 in there, and Windows 10, of course, and maybe a couple other flavors in there for the server versions. We support all of those. We support every way that the Windows desktop is delivered. So Citrix, VMware, Amazon Workspaces, and others. And when you manage your users, your digital workspace at the level where we run, Windows is Windows to our solutions. And therefore, once you have a user under management, they can simply log on and log off of any other Windows experience. So what does that do? It has the side effect of giving your users a zero downtime migration. They can log off one desktop and onto the next to Windows 11, Windows 7 to Windows 11, Windows 10 to Windows 11 are the server versions, and therefore, same with application management. When you're delivering your applications with our Flex app layering technology, they're literally attached to an operating system. And once they're in one container and they are attached, they can go to another one without needing to repackage them like you have to with some technologies like Citrix app layering. And then it's got some very innovative technologies in there, head and shoulders above app volumes. So while you may have access to a few of these things in the stack that you're in, are you always going to be in it? Or we saw a couple of years ago at the start of the pandemic, do I need to rapidly burst scale a bunch of users to cloud-based desktops? And can they have a seamless experience? And can I manage them in a singular way and know the monitoring and diagnostics among them, whether desktop A is better than desktop B? And that's what you get with Liquidware and our digital workspace management suite, Profile Unity Flex app, and Stratosphere Ux. Stratosphere Ux we'll speak about most today. And we'll go a little deeper into Stratosphere Ux. So we really pioneered this whole user experience area of Windows. In 2009, no one was really using the term UX, and we even incorporated it in our product name. It gives you, as I said, workspace transparency across all workspace platforms. And I said Windows is Windows to us, but in the case of Stratosphere, we also monitor the endpoints connecting to Windows. You'll hear more about that today, and that means we support Linux. We have an agent that supports Linux, and we have one that specifically has been built and custom tailor built for the Igl OS. So in addition to Windows, we also know the first mile connectivity as well. The metrics that we have, one of our SEs described it as more windshield than anyone else. More left to right, if I go to the very edge of my screen here, and more top to bottom. You'll see more desktop metrics than you'll see from anywhere else. And it makes for sometimes, in the past, we've had a bit of a crowded UI trying to get everything to one, but we have these new views within Stratosphere that get you just to what you want. You'll see some of that today. And we also have integration with Power BI and platforms like ServiceNow that we've built with Is Zentegra and the integration there. So you can have these metrics flow in to intuitive screens for what you want to see for the desktop metrics. Liquidware and Igel, there's two logical integration points with Stratosphere. And that's that purpose-built agent on the endpoint that's in Linux that gives you that first mile connectivity. So even for your work from anywhere users that maybe may have a repurposed desktop or laptop at home, and there's an automation in there in that slide, that's fine, you can stay on this one. Even for those, we have that purpose-built agent in there, is our connector ID, and you see that within the Igel configuration area, and you also see it in the unified management console where you can turn this on. And as soon as you turn that on and you report back the findings to, you see the hub there, demo.liquidware, it would be unique for your organization, how you've set it up. It's a virtual appliance. It'll start to gather all these metrics. And we also have an agent that'll run in the desktop session for Windows upstream, if that's what you're doing. And it will you can correlate those metrics and you can get a composite user experience score. So there's no blind spots. You know what the endpoint is, and you know what the Windows session is, and you know how quality the user experience is overall. And then you can use that data to rapidly diagnose anything that's happening with user experience. And you can use that data to rapidly scale up to add users too, because you need to upsize your infrastructure in many areas if you're adding more and more cloud-based desktops. We'll give you more of a peek at that later as in some of the demos. But the other logical point with Stratosphere with the Igl OS is being able to assess, because we run on Windows desktops, as I said, we run on Linux desktops, but we can take our agent and we can rapidly roll it out to Windows-based desktops, and it will gather metrics in as little as 1 or 2 log-offs, less than a week. And we'll report that back to our central console. We even can do that quickly and report it back to a console that is either from us or from Zentegra or from Igel hosted, where you don't have to set up your own. Let's go back a couple of slides, if you don't mind. And you can have a turnkey report out of that. We do that at low or no cost through Zentegra and through Igel, and you can request those licenses so you can get a taste of everything that Stratosphere sees and get some logical next steps for your project. So just as Chris said, with repurposing older hardware, and you'll see this in a report in a couple of slides here, you need to be thinking already about Windows 11. There's a lot of machines that cannot run Windows 11, and you might not be able to get your hands easily on hardware to run Windows 11. So it might be a great time, even for the purposes of Windows 11, to start to think about how can I repurpose this hardware and take advantage of cloud-based desktops as well. We can go back to that Windows 11 report if you wish there. So this is a simple report. This one's not the prettiest form. We have another form of it, but it's the way to show you everything on one screen here. All those metrics that Microsoft is mandating that you need for the most secure Windows desktop, we track those within Stratosphere and we'll give you a report, and this is running on some old machines. Likely where you see the green out to the far right, you would see machines that either can manage an in-place upgrade, or they can do a Windows image refresh for Windows 11. In this case, we only have a couple of machines that are fully supported in here. As I said, these are some of our Linux-based desktops in our development center, so they may not be the most compatible matches for Windows 11. So if you take this into account and you say, what am I going to do with all these machines that are not supported? And then if you looked at this same type of report of the ones that are compatible with the Igl OS, you'll find that far more of them will be compatible with the Igl OS. You can repurpose those, and when you're running that great version of Igl OS on the endpoint, and it can allow you to get to those machines. On this slide here, I'd like to introduce Thomas, because Thomas worked closely with Chris Feeney to build out the metrics that you would see once we do an Igl assessment.
Yep, thank you, Jason. So as Jason mentioned, this is all about Stratosphere, and Stratosphere is all about data. So we collect data, and we aim at doing two things really well. If I have to differentiate Stratosphere from any other tool gathering data on the planet, and you probably have about a gazillion of those, we focus on getting all the information that's related to desktop workspace, whether it's physical, virtual, cloud. That's our spot. So that's really what we focus on, which means that we capture information about a lot of different aspects of it. So obviously we're going to capture what you have. In other words, the inventory, or the what's installed on your current desktop. That's what we're using in the previous screenshot to determine things like, are you compatible with Windows 11? So CPU, memory, disk space, the BIOS, what's installed, the application installed, etc., etc. We capture all that. Next, we capture everything that surrounds the desktop in terms of how it's being used. So resource being consumed, application being launched, but also anything external like network, like platform, like hosts. Even we'll be able to detect things like if you're connecting through a Wi-Fi router, and we'll detect the router. We'll even be able to tell you how far away you are from your routers and how big or strong or weak the signal is. So we capture all that information, and we aim at being really the best at it. So capture everything that's relevant for desktop type project, and two, make sure that that information is correct. It sounds silly, but I can't tell you how many times we run into scenarios where other tools, just by reporting data they found on WMI, might give you a different picture. So getting all the information and getting the information right is basically the foundation of Stratosphere. Now, in my mind, that's half the job. You can deal with tons and tons and walls of data, and we have data. We have more data than you can chew off. But I truly believe that our mission in life is not to provide data, or is not limited to provide data, it's to provide answers. So in order to get there, we have worked with tools like, we have an open API that allows us to basically pull the information we want. So it's a very powerful tool for us to just tailor the view or get only the data we want, so we don't spend time scrolling through a 10,000 row spreadsheet. So that's number one. The API gives us the ability also to build almost on the fly custom reports when combined with tools like business intelligence tools like Power BI. I chose Power BI because it's Microsoft and it's free, but you can apply the same rule to pretty much anything. And what that gives us is, when you combine the data, something we can rely on and have all the information we need, with intelligence or brain power. So if this example here is the first version of a Igl custom report we built together. So Igl met with us, and we just put our brain together and says, okay, that's the data we have on one hand. Igl knew, and all credit, by the way, should go to Chris Feeney, what answers they're looking for, what customers looking for. We combined them together, and the result was this initial reports. So if you look through it, you'll see that it'll give you, first of all, if you look at the top level, it'll give you the initial answer. I've got roughly 1,400 machine, and anybody except 58 are candidates. We'll go through the list of which one are compatible for Windows 11, and you'll get an idea of which one are a candidate for what type of workload. I should add at this point that what you're looking at is the version 1.0 of the reports. We're currently working in parallel with Igel on one hand to come up with version 2 of the reports that will include even further detail. Igel is in a unique position to, and they've spent a lot of legworks working all the gotchas, all the small details, and all the hardware specific for every type of workload. So expect to see in the next few weeks an updated version of this report that not only will include things like, hey, yeah, it's recommended, it supports multimedia, it supports Citrix, but further in details, including different workload like Horizon Cloud Desktop, as well as specific use cases like, oh, all I want to do is support Teams, all I want to do is support Zoom, et cetera, as well as, and I can't thank them enough to doing all that work, a breakdown by hardware that will recognize your different hardware, desktop or laptop, and actually put them in the right category. So a lot more details and a lot more thorough reports. But even at this stage, you can see we're running the report basically is in the business of saving you time. We deploy Stratosphere, let it run for a week, because frankly, we don't need that much. It's mostly based on what those desktops are based on, and we can provide the answer instead of providing you the data to get to the answer, which in my mind is a big difference. Now, there's in parallel to that, we're also working with Zentegra, who is going to add on top of that a layer of their own brain power and intelligence. I truly believe that data in itself is worthless if you don't know how to use it. And that's where our skill sets from all the service and engineers at Zentegra comes into play. They can take that data, they can take that custom report from Igel and make a Zentegra report, which will have even more of their stamp, if you want, of their IP onto it. I won't share what it is because A, I don't know, and it's Zentegra IP, of course. Next slide, please. So beyond the assessment, that's really designed to answer this question, right? Which one of my devices are compatible, which one I can repurpose, and what can I run on them? So based on your target, you'll get the answer from the first report. We also built another report together with Igel that comes after. And this is one example of we made a couple actually. The whole idea here is to conduct what at Liquidware we call a health check. And the whole idea, again, is to get a sense of quick answers on, are things okay, or am I having problems? The main use case for this report is designed for initial deployment, POC or pilot when you're testing out the deployment. So it definitely comes after in your project phases. And it's either a validation or troubleshooting tool. Can be used either way. Either use it to say, yep, I'm all good. I'm basically delivering the workload the way it was before, or everything's in the green, or no, something's wrong. And that's something that salespeople would like to see, but something that needs to happen anyway. If something's wrong in the settings and the design, it's a lot more helpful to know right away where's the bottleneck so that you can go and fix it. So health check is another angles that you can leverage Stratosphere to quickly understand what's going on. You'll notice in there that there's one metrics called UX. I think we were the first. We've been pioneering. I won't say that word again. We've been first to market in many places, and one of them I believe is just to coin the concept of user experience. So right in Stratosphere, you have a metrics, which is basically a major calculated KPI based on 11 different metrics that's here to answer the question, are you having a good day or something's wrong? So call UX, VDI UX, it's based basically on everything that will impact it: CPU, queue, swapping, latency, and so on and so forth. So it's a great way to simply put, combine a lot of data into a simple view that tells you, yep, you just moved from a physical desktop to an Igel device or embedded, and the user experience is the same or better than before. And if it's not, again, to my previous point, better know about it so you can go and fix it, whether it's change the configuration or the resource. Next slide, please. So working with Igel, we agreed to basically put at their customers, and of course that includes Zentegra, license, free license that allows you to run Stratosphere and get those reports and get those answers. So there's no commitments. It's pure free license on our end, and that will get you started and allow you to get those reports on the back end. Whether it's an assessment, and I don't think we specifically mention it in our offer, but this also covers scenarios like health check. So even if you already have deployed Igel device and you want to see if everything is up to par, everything is performing as it should be, or if it's not. And usually, although I hate to say it, we typically involve when it's not going well, because when everything's going well and users don't complain, you don't necessarily need us initially. So that's typically when we get involved. Obviously, there is additional benefits of using Stratosphere, but point in case here, we usually call into the fire drills when something is not going well. And I think that's it on my end. Next slide, I think we're shifting back to, I'm not sure if it's Patrick or if it's on you.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, guys, now that we've kind of gone high level, kind of what the solution is. Hey, we're facing these issues, right? We have, we have hardware shortages, we have chip shortages, we have lead times, increases in the cost of hardware. We've talked about how we can leverage these tools at a high level, but now we're going to kind of get into the weeds, how we do that practically. How do you actually repurpose those devices? So we're going to go through that now. Actually get into the weeds, show you how to do it. We'll show you our live environment, a UMS server running some Igel devices, and walk through some settings. And we can take some, questions in the chat as we do this. But right before we do that, I just wanted to introduce you guys. I see Andy's joined. Andy Whiteside is our founder and CEO. Andy, would you like to say hello real quick?
Hey, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, guys, thanks for us doing this. Thanks for customers and potential customers for attending. Zentegra invented the Igel repurposing workshop, 7-8 years ago, and unfortunately, some of us got busy. And I'm just extremely happy that we're doing this again. And we have someone like Patrick that's extremely knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than we've ever been before, even though we were pretty good leading these things and adding value to the community. The model: build a community, serve that community. This is one way of doing it. So just want to thank you guys for us. Thank you, Patrick, for helping lead this and put it on. And then thank you to the folks that are attending.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Thank you. And so let's get into it. Let's talk about how we can convert devices, right? That's obviously the goal now, right? We have these additional costs in place, lead times. You need to get your organization to a place that's functioning good. Your end users have a great experience. So Chris, let's talk through these a little bit before we get into actually converting. Let's talk about a couple options we have to convert those devices. We have obviously the OS Creator, but there's a couple new ones. Chris, you want to speak to these? The OS Creator for Windows, Sccm, et cetera. They're kind of newer within the last year or two, I think.
Yeah, innovation, right? So customer demand, that type of thing. For me, what stood out for Igel in my years before Igel was learning that they could repurpose devices, and then. Maybe about a year or so before I came here, they had the bootable USB stick, the UD Pocket, where it's already installed, that type of thing. So, but latching on to repurposing devices, what we introduced, I'm going to say, I think it was 2020, to be honest. I think it was somewhere in there, the OS C for Windows. So and really kind of honestly, the timing was very good because you had devices out there or situations where they truly wanted a no-touch deployment. How could we send something down to the device without physically touching it and then switch it and convert it? And so OSC for Windows is basically, we have either an EXE or an MSI file and the ISO. And so from the UMS, you could deploy down to the device this OSC for Windows, or you could just standard deployment. You can push out the EXE or MSI to the devices in whatever your standard management tool might be, for example. And then that would check in with the UMS, and then it would go and pull down the ISO, and then you could execute a command to reboot the machine. And I'm very much simplifying this. And then on the reboot, it begins to convert the device to Igl OS. And then when it comes up, then it comes back on the network, and it was previously on Windows. Now it's running Igl OS, and then it goes through and checks in with the management server, and then begins to get licensed and assume the configuration that you would want it to have. So that's what that tool is all about. A slightly other thing, a kind of similar thing, is this Sccm Add-On. Actually, let me pause there. Any questions, maybe from the audience or Patrick on that particular tool? And the red is just a link to the KB article. So what I'll do is I'll just pop that into the chat if somebody wants to, see what that is. But let me grab this here.
Looking in the chat here, we've got, I think we have more comments about the hedgehogs than we do questions at the moment.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's always the case. Yeah.
Chris, kind of to what you just said there, just to, kind of stage a question here. The OSC for Windows and the Sccm Add-On, they're different in the sense of, if we have a customer on the call today who is managing their existing Windows devices with Sccm, the Sccm Add-On is a no-brainer. But let's say maybe they have another third-party tool that they're managing their devices with. That's, in my mind, where the OSC for Windows would make more sense. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
Yeah. So, just the simple ability to just push an EXE file or an MSI, it kind of executes in the background. You get visibility into it in the Igl management, and you can tell it to convert itself, essentially.
That's right. And the third link I'm putting in, this is kind of all building on this original tool called the OS Creator, or OSC. That's the bootable USB stick, or as I learned in my first 2 years at Igl covering federal, you can't take USB sticks into highly classified environments. That's a no-no. So you have to burn it on DVD. And Liquidware is laughing because their sales rep brought us into a lot of those environments. I'm grateful for that, by the way. But you learn a thing or two about how do we do this. And so, you never thought you'd pull that DVD burner out, but keep them around if you're traipsing around federal installations. So that option does exist as well, but it literally just boot to it and then begins the process. And for today's workshop, we're going to show you kind of what that would look like going through that. If I can get to it, I think I may be able to post an awesome video that Randy Price from Zentegra created showing you how the OSC for Windows tool can work. So if I can find that before the end of the show, I'll put that in the chat for people to watch.
I can confirm. You've heard it's so easy a caveman can do it. What was that, a Geico commercial?
Yes, we should repurpose that messaging, right?
But so I wanted to do the demo. This goes back a couple of years when we were starting to do some integration with you guys, and I was like, I want to demo this, and I want to have a VM running on the Igl OS on my stuff, and I was like, that's it. It was like working. So I would go back and say it's so easy a marketing guy can do it, because I was able to use VirtualBox and get the OSC up and running and have my machine reporting back in short order. And so that's the OSC is the easiest way, in my opinion, for Igl. If you want to just get a flavor or taste of what Igl looks like on the endpoint. Like if you're a desktop admin or somebody and you got a spare laptop laying around that you have written off for dead, it can be incredibly powerful with the Igl OS on it, and you can do that really, really quickly, and have an embedded browser on there and be able to use that laptop again, maybe for some basic uses around the house. But then when it gets more powerful is when you start putting those links on there to get to you Windows in the cloud, of course.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give a plug how easy it is.
Yeah, we've tried to make it very easy. And what's really cool, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about this. Even that USB stick that you can create with the advent of our Igl Ready program, little shout out to our friend there. Obviously, it's brought up, hey, can I get these devices shipped preloaded with Igl OS from factory in some cases, right? But what that's also kind of brought about is that, well, if I'm going to do that, why not create a bootable stick that is like a gold image kind of thing, or it already has some pre-configured settings. So if I'm walking around sneaker netting this thing, I can just have a tech walk up, boot to the stick, and have it already sort of, they call it unattended install. So if you're familiar with that method with MSI files and all that fun jazz, if you're a Windows admin, we have an unattended install that kind of check, answers all these questions, and even has maybe pre-configured settings. So one of the things is when you install it, and we'll kind of walk through this later when you see the how-to, you can say, well, I'm a Citrix shop. I don't need any of the VMware stuff. So I'm going to uncheck that. Those clients, the client is not installed, or I don't want this, that, or the other. And so you could kind of have that and make that. So it's really a no-brainer. When a thing comes up, it's or you have a situation where those devices, because you've identified them through Liquidware's awesome assessment tool, but maybe it just needs to be a kiosk sort of walk up and it's got some dashboard on it. We don't need much. We can kind of pull off a lot of the features, and we only have 2 gigs of RAM to work with anyway. So let's just have the browser or something else very limited on there, and we'll just, we'll strap that thing to the back of a monitor and put it up on the wall. And then we can do our PowerPoint slideshows or whatever it is that we need to do messaging wise. So don't think that even though it's smaller, because believe me, I was talking with our Rockstar SCs last week who worked with a very large shipping company that you probably have worked with before. They had very old HP thin clients, and they didn't have a lot to work with. I would say less than a gig, but they were able to strip down the OS to the bare minimum. And they're still leveraging Citrix for shipping packages and things. So, and they've got 11,000+ of these out there, if not more. So, never say never, right? So,
so yeah, Chris. So I mean, it really what I think when you and I started at Igl, right back many moons ago, we started together there. There was really only 2 options, right? You had the OS Creator, which we'll walk through in a minute here, live. And then you had that deployment appliance, which is of course a Pixie appliance. I've always recommended that, if you have a little segregated network where you can just take devices, plug them into a switch, and you have Pixie enabled, it'll automatically reimage them. But these other options now, really kind of what we're getting at is there's just a ton of ways now and to repurpose those Windows devices that you have in your environment today. Obviously, first step being using Liquidware to run reports and say, hey, how many of these devices are actually compatible, and how many of them can actually run, for example, Teams offloading in Citrix or Teams offloading in VMware. So that would be like kind of the step 1. But then once you kind of identify that, there's just a whole bunch of ways you can actually repurpose those devices now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it has gotten a whole lot better, and a lot of this is, let's just face it, Igl is still to this day people learning about it. When we first started, and as we come into these environments where, hey, we got this tool or these tools, can we use those? What's not on here is one of my first government customers, they ended up figuring how to use Symantec Ghost to basically do the same thing as OSC for Windows or SCCM kind of thing. And we actually documented, you'll find it if you type in Ghost on our KB, you'll find an article that I think kind of outlined how they actually did it. So it was a field-based article, but the customer was able to leverage that and repurpose a bunch of government laptops and gave them an extra life for a while. This is pre-pandemic, of course. So,
and we're all having a lot of nostalgia right now, thinking about Semantic Ghost or Norton Ghost.
I know somebody's probably having nightmares. And sorry, I sent you back into time there.
There you go. Trying to repurpose trying to re-image a bunch of devices in a customer. So
yeah.
All right.
So shout out to our friends from Liquidware. That was one of your customers. So thank you for your help on that one.
There you go.
All right.
All right. So this is just again, guys, real high level, the different methods you have available to you to repurpose your devices. But we're gonna switch gears right now. We're gonna talk about and walk through how to actually do it. Where the rubber meets the road, so to say. Where if you have a device in your environment, the first thing you need to do, it's just a real simple test is you might want to convert the device. Might also be worth mentioning, Chris talked about the UD Pocket before. It's a little thumb drive. Actually, I would unplug mine right now, but I'm using it. And basically, it's about the size of your thumbnail, plugs into any device that's compatible with Igel. You can boot to it. It's a bootable version. So that's table that to the side. But let's say you want to convert a device. So the first step.
Patrick, before you go there, I know there's probably a lot of sysadmin and technical people on this call. I mean, if you need our help, we'll absolutely help you. But take your laptop and dual boot it for a while, or not dual boot it, but you use the UD Pocket. That's what Chris is doing. I'm sure you've done that in the past, where before you have yourself go in and use the UD Pocket for 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is, and become a Linux user full time or most of the time, and you'll learn a lot that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's really a great way to just not disrupt anything. Not to use the word disrupt there, but if you have a Windows device, you don't want to re-image it. That UD Pocket's great because it's just like a little temporary Igel operating system. You pull it back out, you're back to where you were.
And I'll make this statement. There's most of us technical guys, we've always wanted to run around and use Linux because it'd be, be cool. It'd be different. It'd be unique. And Igel's the first, for most of us, for the average human being that's technical, this is the first real way of doing it, because the things we need as a desktop is in there without having to, really go crazy to try to make it work.
Yeah, I'll just shout out to that. The UD Pocket, let's say you run the assessment tool from our friends from Liquidware, if you forgot who else was here. And then you say, all right, I got this laptop. It will, based on this report, I can install it, but I don't want to blow away Windows yet. The UD Pocket would be your next step because we're going to bypass the local hard drive. We're not going to touch it. We're just going to leverage all the RAM and CPU power that we can muster. And then from there, you get a place to get to a very secure operating system, a place that you can get to your stuff. So if you don't like the hotel network that you're going to be traveling, you're going on vacation, but the UD Pocket and a nice laptop or something would be a nice choice to stay secure while you're on that untrusted network.
Absolutely. So let's think about, let's say you have, like we talked about earlier, a closet full of old devices just collecting dust right now. Let's talk about those devices for a minute, because here's a way you can completely convert them to Igel. So we're going to walk through, let's go through this practically how we would do this. If you want to convert one of those devices for testing, obviously you want to reach out to Zentegra. We'd love to help you. But just if you want to just give it a quick test, here's how we're going to do it. So let's go through this. We've got step one, we got to get to a browser. Okay, we'll go in and we'll go to igel.com. Now the full link to get right to it is /software-downloads. You can also just click the link on igel.com, and this is going to bring us to all the different downloads that Igel has. They're all publicly facing. But that first one to the left there, Workspace Edition, that's where we want to go. This is going to be Igel OS 11. So you have different versions. There's one for Raspberry Pi. We won't talk about that too much today. You can have all the management softwares there. But we're going to go into OS 11, and then we're going to go down here to this OS Creator. Okay? And all of the different versions that are publicly facing are here. You can scroll through, look at them. You can also go here to the detailed description if you want to look at release notes, see what versions of, for example, Liquidware are in there. But let's go ahead and we'll click this and we'll fill out a form, check a box, and we're going to go ahead and download it. It's that simple. Now, I'm not going to make you watch that. So I have here a folder with this download content. It comes as a zip file. I unzipped it. So you're going to open up, you're going to look in. There's a little folder called Prepare Stick. And when you open this, you're going to see there's a whole bunch of little files here. Number one, you have an ISO here, this OSC 11.6.250. That's our ISO. You have a manual. There's also this little utility here, preparestick.exe. So Igel developed this. It's a little Windows application. You can kind of launch it, and this is what it looks like. So this is how you just create a quick bootable stick to convert devices. So just plug in your USB key. And go ahead and hit start writing process. And that's as simple as that. Now, I will say this, I've seen this, and Chris, I'm sure you've seen this in the past. There are times when, for example, an antivirus might conflict with this device. We always do recommend either to disable your antivirus when you're doing that, if you can do that, or I wanted to give you another option. I know this may not be officially supported, but it works very well. Little utility out there called Rufus. Shout out to Rufus, great utility. You can leverage Rufus, very popular way to create bootable media. So you would go in, you would select your OSC file, that ISO, and make sure that your disk is selected. And then the key here, guys, when you hit start, there's two modes. Because Igel is Linux, it has to be in DD image mode. That's the key. So make sure it's in DD image. You would go ahead and hit OK, and you would have yourself a bootable media. So now that we have that bootable media, okay, whether we went with Rufus or the Prepare Stick, now we need to convert the device. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll walk through that together. So we have our bootable USB media. I'm going to do this on a VM because just easier to present here. But I'm going to boot to that USB stick using a VM. I do like VirtualBox personally. And we're going to go ahead and this is what it's going to look like. You're going to boot up. You're going to have a couple different options here. We're not going to worry about them. You're going to pick this first one here, standard installation. Okay. And this is going to take us just to a nice GUI base.
We did a podcast, and there's a video blog out there that explains all the different boot options in detail. Maybe a follow-up email after this would be to send that out.
Great. Absolutely. So
You remember what episode that was, Andy? That was a Seb episode, right? Community one.
I'll find it and post it. I'll find it and post it.
That's cool. Good. All right. Carry on.
Now, here we go. Now we're in. So obviously pick your language, nice little GUI interface that walks you through all the options here. We're going to hit OK. And then
let's pause here.
Launch here.
Yeah.
So real quick. So a couple check boxes. We have migrate old settings. Because I'm repurposing a device that's already been there, I'm not going to do that. But I do have a license. We'll talk about licensing in a minute here. But what we're going to do is uncheck migrate old settings, keep the migrate licenses in place. And it's really that simple. If you didn't have a license, you don't have to worry about that. Click install firmware. It's generally going to take about, anywhere between 2 and 10 minutes here.
Let's, I wanted to, before you hit install, let's see here. Yeah, there's a couple options there. I referred to, just hit cancel here. It's fine. It'll go back to the screen.
Yeah, it's gonna. Sorry, I kicked it off.
Oh, is it video?
We can walk through them. Yeah, we can walk.
Well, while this is going through, and this will honestly be done in like less than 5 minutes. Yeah, it's really fast.
Fast forward so you guys don't have to watch it. And, but you'll see here it's creating all these little partitions, Cisco, Zoom, and that's how the OS is actually constructed.
Yeah.
Patrick, can we comment on this? I know you just sped that up or something maybe, but
yep.
It's relative to the speed of your hard drives. The nice thing is Igel, once it boots, is going to be so lightweight that a old school spinning hard drive is going to work. SSD, NVMe 2 or whatever is going to make it lightning quick. But those old devices that have pretty much become unusable in the world of Windows because of the spinning hard drives that are in them, all of a sudden, other than a little slower install, are going to be very usable again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that a lot, just breathing new life into your devices here. And just to show you how easy this is, we're kind of nexting through this, picking our language. This is the operating system welcome screen. We're not going to get too into the local login, but we're going to show you just how easy it is, when you have a management environment, just to quickly type in your URL to connect to your Igel Cloud Gateway. We'll discuss that a little more at length. You can be, converted and under management in a few minutes here. We're going to leverage a thing called a structure tag here, which is the way you can tell users, hey, punch in your department, accounting, or whatever. And all they would need is a structure tag and a one-time password. Hit connect, and they're going to come right under management and get the profiles, the workflow essentially that you as the administrator have configured and set up for them. So that's what you're seeing here. The agent, once that happens, the UMS agent pops up. It registers the device to the cloud gateway. That means that no other Igel environment can manage that device. Only your environment can manage it at that point. And what it's going to do here, it's going to do a quick reboot. And when it comes up here, what you're going to see is it's going to pull down a configuration that we've already pre-staged as the administrator.
While that's going on, and you make a good point, I'm putting an article into the chat. This is a very true story, but you converted an old, what you thought was destined for the dumpster file, whatever, but because it's now running Igl, we're not hitting the hard drive as much. Doing little tweaks like this, CPU power consumption, we have a little tool very similar to what you probably might see with Windows, right? You power plan, right? Okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put it in, presentation mode, or it's going to be, brightness is up, or, I like working in the dark. You can, we have like these pre-configured things where you can have your own, but this little power plan allows you to drop down, the usage and the hits. And we have literally seen customers being at healthcare conference last week, a lot of those roaming carts where they may have had a Windows laptop or something running and draining the battery, and they have to, keep plugging it in every day. They've been able to extend the battery life of those devices to hours, if not, maybe 2 days, whereas before they were not getting that type of battery life. So little things like that can actually go a long way. So Patrick, I'll just take it back here to see what's going on.
Yeah. So the device here has got pulled as config. We have a browser. Igl OS natively has 2 browsers built in, Firefox and Chromium. Right here, we're leveraging Chromium. We're out Zentegra's website. I also have a Citrix profile applied. And what we can do now, guys, we can actually, let's get into this, live, right? So we can kind of talk through a lot of these different things. Now that we have the device converted, let's talk through the different options that are there and take some questions. So I see there's a couple in the chat here. I'm going to actually pull up my UMS server here. Make sure can you guys see that okay? Everybody see my UMS server? Good, cool. Okay, and then what we can do here, guys, let's see what we got in the chat. See, Chris put a couple links in there.
Patrick, you probably already told people, but we have a UMS server in the cloud that's available for POCs and pilots if they want to have a little help kicking the tires.
Yeah, so I did not mention that yet, but that is absolutely there. If anybody is interested in everything that we're showing you here, we have all of the Igl management already there. It's actually what you're looking at right now. It's in Azure, and you don't have to worry about spinning up a server to manage this. You can just kind of convert a device. Give us reach out to us. We'll help you connect to our environment, and you're off and running. So I have a device here. Let me show you this, just as a real, quick overview of what UMS is. UMS is Igl's management, Universal Management Suite. And what we can do here is we'll walk through just some basic stuff, the basics of it. I see a couple questions coming in, and we'll just kind of walk through this. So, real quick overview, what you're looking at. Let's focus on 2 areas in the UMS. I always like to just tell people focus on 2 things. Very simple. Number 1, profiles. This is where you're going to build out your workflows. This is how I have a couple here. I have I'm telling my device to get a 12-hour clock here. I'm giving my device the ability where I can shadow the device natively through the UMS console, and a couple other ones.
Hey, Patrick, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to take a moment if we could quickly address these 2 questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Jorge asked about licensing. We can kind of pull that up in a second and show kind of how a device is licensed and that type of thing. I did want to address Eric's 2 questions as well. We have the default browsers, Firefox, Chrome. Edge is not built into Igl. Currently, Microsoft has a Linux-based version of that that they either have in beta or stable. And the way that would work is you could install what's called a custom partition on an Igl device. That's basically an application that is not already built, but you can install one. Here's an example of some that are out there. And there's the one thing about Igl is as a read-only OS, we've removed the ability to just go download and install stuff that just does not exist. But there is a way to get a Linux-based app onto Igl, and that's through this mechanism here. Now, to the follow-on question, force use of Edge. Well, you can basically disable really anything that's on the desktop is configurable. If you don't want them to have Firefox and Chrome and the only browser that is available is an icon that shows Edge, totally doable. And so now the other one, repurpose how this. So first of all, we're not joining to the domain, so there are no domain GPOs that will get applied. Full stop. Everything that is going to apply to that device is what is out of the UMS server that Patrick has up. So if we go back here, if you want to just show in the UMS administration sort of where the licensing exists and how a device might get one when it checks in.
Sure.
Chris, you made a comment about Microsoft working on a Linux version of Edge. Does that mean it's likely that you guys might embed that as an option within the operating system when that happens?
Probably not. It's probably going to be more like with our new version OS 12 coming out. If Microsoft so chooses, there will be what's called an app store, which would basically be what we've previously known as custom partitions, an app store. And if Edge happens to show up in there, then a customer could go and pull that down and now deploy Edge down to the devices. I don't know if that's going to happen. That would be a Microsoft scenario. If they were to join the Igl Ready program, that would be totally something that could be done.
Other quick comment. So Edge is based on Chromium. Chromium is already in the operating system.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we briefly touched on, if you weren't familiar, Igl has a fantastic community on Slack. And there's a lot of questions and things going on out there. If you have questions about Edge or Chromium or whatever, you could certainly go there. I'll put a link there. But before we do that, I'll let Patrick talk about how licensing works.
Yeah. So yeah, great. It's a great question. It's one that pretty much every customer is going to ask. When you think of Igl licensing, there's two licenses, right? So number one, you have what's called the Workspace Edition license, and that license is really the operating system license. Today it's a perpetual license. So if you had 1,000 devices you want to convert to Igl, you would need 1,000 of those Igl Workspace Edition licenses. And then there's also a second license called the Enterprise Management Pack. That's going to give you all the enterprise features, things like when we talk about the Igl Cloud Gateway. That's the ability to manage devices that are off of your WAN, right? That they're work from home users, they're kind of out there. You're managing them over the internet. And you can do all of the same things that we'll show you today. You can manage the same way with the remote users without a VPN. So you would need that second license. That second license, Enterprise Management Pack, we call it EMP. That's actually a yearly subscription license that you definitely need the Workspace Edition. The question I get asked all the time, if you have, let's say you have 1,000 devices and 200 of them need EMP, you need 1,000 Workspace Editions and 200 EMP. So you don't need it for every one of them, but that's generally just the overview of the two licenses. Now, how you deploy them, that's all done via the UMS, via the management. So here, you'll see that we have the ability to enable automatic deployment. Now, Igl has a license portal. So when you go and buy, your licenses, you would register them in the license portal, and your device actually your UMS, if it can speak out to the internet and hit Igl's cloud license portal, you could turn on features here. You could do things like just anytime a device comes under management, automatically give it a license. You could do other things like, hey, when if a device is in a certain directory, give it a license, but if it isn't in that directory, don't license it. So you can kind of automate a lot of that away. So some really great options with licensing. The other thing you could do, if you have your licensing here, is you can go back to the devices area, and here's the device here. I could right click on that device and I could just license it manually. So let's say it had a Workspace Edition license today, and I'm like, I want to give this device an EMP license so I can manage it remotely. You would just right click, you can do it that way as well. Most people will leverage, and we obviously recommend, I think everyone on the call who's technical, automation is king. You want to automate as much away as you can, but you still have that ability to do it manually. And it's all done in this single pane of glass in the UMS console.
Chris, I had a question about, it's related to what Eric said about GPOs in his question.
Mm-hmm.
But there is aren't there two ways to authenticate when users log on when you set it up? Can't you set up Igl OS to authenticate using AD and also separately not do that, I guess, another way through UMS or something?
Absolutely. So what you're referring to there is, when the device is first converted, there is no login screen. It just boots up and you're landing at a desktop. For folks that are familiar with Windows, that is a completely foreign thing. Like, whoa, what happened there? Like, auto logged in. Well, the reality is it's Linux. So let's talk about what is built in. We have two users, user and root. And so most things when you're running it off the desktop are user, obviously a lower level thing. And so you can obviously lock down that. But what is not happening is we're not joining the Linux device to the Active Directory domain. That being said, and that ties into user policies and other stuff that you would normally configure in that. The equivalent of those same sort of policies in terms of how that device can be managed is through what you have here, profiles. Let's translate that to your GPOs. And the configuration for that, here's an AD login where you go in and you set up a connection to Active Directory. And then you say, all right, you can log in with password or smart card, for example. And then that would put a login screen on top of the Igel desktop, traditional login. And that could be done. What's really cool is we can do that either directly on the LAN, or if you're using our Igel Cloud Gateway and the feature called Shared Workplace, you can actually do an authentication with AD when you're off the network.
Real quick, just to be clear, though, what we're saying is the device is not a domain member. However,
correct.
You can log into the device using a domain user.
Correct.
And if you put Shared Workplace in the mix, you can even do that from off the network.
Correct. And then at that point, again, from there, you can say, all right, I just logged in with AD, do a pass-through Kerberos authentication into my Citrix session, and then that fires up, logs you into Citrix, and then you either have your icons for your apps and desktops or whatever, and kind of take it from there. And you could do that with Horizon or Microsoft, whatever. So those pieces do exist as well.
Okay. So the reason why I bring this up is sometimes it's easier for us to track that user because we want to correlate with Stratosphere. We want to correlate the Igel system to the Windows system, and we need a common denominator to do that easily. And there's some workarounds that we've done if you don't have this set up. But when you're using their AD username, it makes it a lot easier for us to track and have one composite user experience score between the two.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, I having come from normally a Windows world to Igel, had various types of setups, right? We want an AD login, or we want to use smart card to get to something after that. That was very common in Fed. Or I just want to use smart card or AD login directly to a browser, or to get to my workspace or the native workspace Citrix app or Horizon app, that type of thing. And you're kind of locking down the device. So that's the first thing the user logs into. And then from there, as far as analytics and all that other stuff, you could say, hey, I got a session coming from Igel device 0123, whatever. And it happens to correlate to Chris Feeney, who just logged in and is now, running Windows 10 on his VM or something, whatever.
So Chris, to translate that for the group, right? So you can either use this version of Linux that we're looking at here to be a very robust endpoint, or through profiles, you can narrow it down where it acts like a zero client. So that whole zero client thing was just a gimmick where they just stripped a bunch of stuff out. In this case, we can make it feel like a zero client. It comes up, you log straight into a virtual desktop using whatever the app is that gets you there, or you truly do log into Active Directory and act as a Linux endpoint on the network as the user, but not as a domain join machine.
Right. Yeah, lots of options. Patrick, quiz for you. How many options inside of UMS are there potentially?
Great question. I believe, well, I know it's north of 7,000. I don't know the updated number. What is it, Chris?
North of 7,000. Fantastic. Great job.
Look at that. I passed the test.
The key to this conversation is there's so many options. You don't want to come out and say, okay, show me everything I can turn on. You need to come at it with, this is what I want the user experience to be. Now let's mold our profiles into that. Way too many people I talk to say, hey, just show me everything you can do. I'm like, oh, you can't. You can do too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to show you that, so the question about group policy, I think, that's a question, a lot of us have worked with group policy. We kind of understand the logic there. And I think if you understand that logic, it's easy to understand Igel. Because what you're, really what you're looking at, we looked at one profile, like, we kind of created a quick one for an AD login. But down here, you're really just, you're creating like a directory structure for your devices as well. So, I have, an Igel demo here, I have different branches, and I have this one device. If I right click this device, I'm going to go ahead and shadow it. And, this device, what you'll see here is it's just got a Citrix workspace app, and that's all it has. Now, if I click on the directory in which it lives, this basic wallpaper directory, you'll see over here, similar GPO, I have different things that I'm inheriting. So I'm inheriting an EST time zone. If I'm living in EST time zone, I can do that at this level. But you'll see that basic wallpaper only has that applied. But down here, where you see it says indirectly assigned objects, I have other profiles being assigned at the higher levels. I have DNS settings that I have to my device up here at the Igel demo directory level. So it's inheriting those. I have a shadow profile, the ability to shadow this device. That's all configured in this profile, and I'm getting that up there as well. And then, of course, I'm getting my Citrix profile here, one level up at the branches level. So, as you start to build these out, as you start to build out different things, for example, if you have Liquidware Stratosphere.
Yeah, let's open that one up.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. This is really cool too, by the way. I like to tell people, it's really easy to learn Igel if you have a few profiles that already exist, because if you right click and edit them, all of the different settings that are configured are highlighted in blue. So you can just kind of go and look and say, hey, what's set up here? So the beauty of Stratosphere, Thomas talked about that earlier, kind of after you convert the device to Igel, getting those metrics from the device. If you're running something like ServiceNow, you can tie those metrics right into ServiceNow with that agent. And it's really as simple as clicking a checkbox and filling in a couple different fields here. So the Stratosphere agent natively is already baked into the Igel image. And then when I check this box up here to tell it to enable, I point it to my Stratosphere hub. And of course, I can also set these other group and user group fields as well. It's really that simple. Hit save, and then I can apply that to a directory that right now has one device, but there could be 50,000 devices in there, and all of those devices would get this workflow, get this Stratosphere agent enabled, pointing to the right place, and all those 50,000 devices would start to check in, and we would be able to get statistics around them.
Yeah, so let me pause there for a second. So the nice thing is, let's, if we're following sort of this webinar, right? We've assessed our devices, and we've got 100 of them that we think are good candidates for not just Igel, but maybe Citrix and Teams optimization and Zoom and all that other fun jazz. This is your source of truth, okay? Is that report, which we believe it would be fairly accurate. Now we have actual raw data analytics going in, and then you can actually grade how was that experience for the user. That's kind of part of this, and then ongoing, right? And then if you notice that we've kind of pushed that device to its max, it can get maybe 10 video feeds at once, but beyond that, it might be pushing a little bit beyond what it's capable of. And if we need it to be more than that, that's where you can say, maybe I need to find another device that has a little bit more horsepower under the hood. And that could either be another one you have in your inventory, or you're looking at an Igel ready vendor that we work with that might have a nice laptop, whether it's a mobile thin client or some other thin client, whatever, depends, So that's kind of how you can see this all coming together. But very simple, click, check, turn on, bam, now it's reporting in. And I know I've got several devices in my lab that are in that nice little award that Jason has there is for a reason.
Collaboration right there.
Collaboration.
We just awarded that last week.
Yeah. So congrats to Liquidware for being an awesome Igel Ready vendor partner.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
But you should see, I probably have more data on how my devices are doing than I probably remember, but exactly. But I got my UD7, I've got my LG Gram with my UD Pocket. I've got a few other devices out there. And probably Patrick's VM here, whatever it might be. So,
yeah, it's worth pointing out that we do have a live environment that's always on and always running. The one that Chris just showed, pointing at demo.liquidware.com. it's also worth fair warning to say that we've punched a hole through our firewall so that external device, external to Liquidware company can report to it. It's also something that every field in the world use as a demo. So if you're brave enough to send information from your device to demo, just be aware that it will be shown and the rest of the world will see it. If you ever saw a demo from Liquidware, most of the live user you see are actually Liquidware employees. So we always joke that besides, and now Chris and the rest of Liquidware employees are the most transparent company in the world because you can see if we're working or not.
That's right.
We're going to make those statistics public.
Working from anywhere.
Yes. And phases on anywhere.
Well, yeah. Well, you could get that granular, right?
That's right. Where?
Yeah, we keep it in the UX score primarily. Yeah.
And, real quick too, just to show you guys. I mean, I have this device up. All it has right now is the Citrix Workspace app. I can launch that. I can connect in. But let's say I wanted to add. Again, this is one device, and think of this device. By the way, this is a UD Pocket device. I can tell by the logo up here. But think of this as anything. This is the device you're looking at is actually an LG Gram. UMS will capture that in all of these different attributes it pulls in. But this could be anything. This could be your existing Dell-wise thin clients. This could be old desktops that are sitting in a closet collecting dust. This could be old laptops. Just think of this device as any of those things. And you can have multiple in here. Let's say I wanted to push a Chromium Browser out to this device. Let's just drag and drop. I'd grab this Chromium Browser, drop it in the directory. It's going to say, do you want these changes to take effect now or next reboot? I'll go ahead and say now.
Always now.
Always now. There you go. It's a good name of a company.
That's right.
And it's going to get a prompt on the desktop. Now, this prompt can be disabled. That's a question we get a lot. A lot of times in production, you might not want the prompt. You just want to push configurations and it's just going to go. So you can set that. We can show you that if anyone's interested. I'm going to hit OK here. And the beauty of the Igl OS is that Chromium Browser didn't have to be downloaded. I didn't have to pull any data down from the UMS. It was already there. All my profile is doing is telling that device to enable that application and where to point it. So I have Zentegra.com as my homepage. As simple as that. So you could make it your Citrix storefront. You want to push people to the store web, you could do that.
You could make it full screen. You could remove the ability to navigate. You can do all kinds of fun stuff, all within reason. So completely configurable.
Just real quick to show you what I did there with the Chromium Browser. It's really simple, right? I mean, I'm just telling it where to point to. But if I really wanted to get in the weeds, I could go in and set all kinds of different security options. I could remove the URL bar, anything that's in that browser can be adjusted and configured.
Show them the registry. If they're a Windows person, they're probably familiar with the registry. Igel, technically speaking, has a registry as well. So all the settings on the left side ultimately translate to something here. And at the bottom, there's a show only enabled parameters. Hit that button there for me. And whoa, what happened? Holy moly. Amazing. Now you're just navigating to what actually is configured and the rest of it's sort of, out of the way. It's a nice little filter. And if you're not sure what you're looking for, there's a search parameter, and maybe you forgot that it's instead of time, it's clock. If you type in clock, let's see what shows up. Let's see.
Uncheck this first.
Yeah. So, okay. I had to bring all the other settings back and let's see what clock shows me.
Maybe it's time.
It could be time. Maybe I got it wrong.
There you go.
Ah, there we go.
Settings.
So it's a nice way to kind of filter through or find stuff. And there's other options there in the registry, but the long and short is if a setting is not necessarily in the menu settings on the left, it most likely is in the registry. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, Chris, but the 7,000 configurable options, that's all in the registry. So everything you see up here, it's nicely organized into these different categories, right? Sessions being something you're connecting to. Accessory in Igel language is like a utility, something like a Stratosphere agent, it would be there. User interface, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory, the different user options that are there, displays and things like that. Networking, devices, security system, etc. right? They're they're organized in a very user-friendly way, but they all correlate to one of these 7,000 registry settings ultimately. So this is really the engine under the hood, if you will. All right. So let's see. You have any questions? Give you guys a couple minutes. I'll pause there. Any questions in the chat? Anything you guys didn't see or you're curious about? By all means, please, put it in the chat, and we'd love to talk about it.
So Patrick, let me frame what you just said slightly different. It's organized in a very German-friendly way, which has become very Americanized a little bit in the last little bit. When in doubt, look in the registry. When in further doubt, reach out to Zentegra and Igel.
Yeah,
that's true. And I'll put this. And I've always wondered why this isn't in alphabetical order, and my assumption is it's German alphabetical order. When it gets translated to English, it's not. So just an FYI out there. I don't know if Chris can confirm that, but
I can neither confirm nor deny. I honestly do not know, but it is what it is. But here's the great thing: if you cannot figure out where it is, if you're not in the registry, but that little search option down there, click search on the left side.
right. Yep.
Yeah, and just type in, I don't know, Citrix. And everywhere Citrix shows up is going to show. That's 32 hits on Citrix. Let's investigate, I don't know, post session Citrix. Just click on that on the left side. Magically delicious. It even highlights it for you. Holy moly, what is this all about? Very cool. And this is really it's a custom command in this particular case. So what it basically says is you can say, all right, when my Citrix session is done, what do I want to have happen? Maybe I want to reboot the device or log out and log back in or whatever. You can do really cool stuff with this post session command. It's basically monitoring to see what's going on, and you can put in, all these different potential things. And so beyond just the basics, there's other custom things that you can do here. This is just what's built in, but believe me, there's just you're dealing with a very robust operating system. If you know anything about Linux, you'll probably be very excited to play around with Igel. So just kind of pointing some of that out as you're looking through this. And what's really cool, let's say you have competing profiles, you put Chromium on there, and all of a sudden you see a second Chromium icon. You're like, what's going on here? There's ability to compare profiles, and you can kind of see the difference between the two. Compare profile settings. And so you can kind of pick another profile here. So let's take, I don't know, we don't have another one, but let's just, what do you got? Yeah. So this is sort of what's the difference between the two kind of thing. So, but on the left side, it kind of shows you, here's what's configured on Chromium. Here's what's configured on these Zentegra Citrix. And so if the one on the right also had a Chromium setting in there that just happened to be competing with something on the left, you would be able to see what's the difference. Or if you had copied a profile and you wanted to make a slight change, but you maybe missed a setting, this is a tool where you can kind of say, all right, I get it. Or if you wanted to export it out to maybe some other user-friendly format like CSV or something, that's totally doable. So, yeah,
which is a great feature. I mean, a lot of reporting, sometimes it's just easier to just export that and take a look at it, in a log viewer. Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat yet. One thing I'll say, is someone who's managed SCCM in the past, I'm sure a lot of you guys on here can relate to that. I'm still a recovering SCCM administrator. I don't think it's SCCM anymore though. It's they changed the terminology, but the one thing I will say is Igel's management is the easiest management I've ever used. Once you start to get the hang of the settings, the logic behind it, it's extremely logical. And where something like pushing Chromium to 1,000 Windows devices would have taken me probably multiple days. When you talk about building a script, testing the deployment, and then actually doing it. In Igel, it's really as simple as building a profile, testing it, whether it takes you 5 minutes or you want to do extensive testing, and then just enabling that profile, dragging and dropping it down to the area you want it to be. There's no transfer that takes place, it's just there. And that's the beauty of it. All right. So let's see, no questions in the chat. You guys are a quiet group here. Oh, here we go. Is the OS, this is from Eric, is the OS like a dumb client? Like when the user logs off, nothing is saved to the system. Chris, would you like to take that? What is saved to the system locally? What type of sensitive data is there in the device?
Hey, Patrick, can I chime in real quick?
Sure.
So the key in this conversation is understanding the difference between a thin client operating system or a, I'll use the word dumb operating system, a limited operating system, but still very powerful, versus a thin client piece of hardware. What Igel does is it allows you to take most any x86 compatible hardware with minimum requirements and make it a thin client device by putting a thin client operating system on it. In this case, that thin client operating system is read-only partitions, and there are almost no, only intentional partitions allow for resonant data to be on it. So for the most part, it can be as hardened as you want it to be, unless you have particular partitions that you've customized that you want to be persistent with a little bit of data.
Right. So thank you, Andy, for that. Yes, terminology. Let's talk through that. Maybe thin client, zero client, dumb terminal, whatever. Igel OS is very much a smart operating system that is very secure, locked down, managed, and it's going to have some settings, just like that Dell device running ThinOS has some settings controlled by an INI file in many cases. The settings that you see here, let's go back to that basic wallpaper example that we have on that UD Pocket, I think it was.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. So those settings get taken down to the device, and it does reside. So this is the nice thing. If I take my UD Pocket and I just happen to run it home or something like that, whatever, and maybe I wasn't connected to the ICG so I could be managed from wherever. That's fine. It's going to retain this setup. It'll just be unmanaged while it's off the network. So this comes up often, right? Where the gateway is primarily for managing devices that are not on the same network where the UMS resides. So you might have scenarios where you could take a laptop and it's more, bring it in the office. Today's hybrid world, you might be in the office a couple of days and most of the time working from home. So the UMS might reside in the office and the ICG is in the cloud or in the DMZ, wherever it is, doesn't really matter. When you're out of the office, the device can check in and be managed, but let's just say it was never connected to the ICG. The config that was laid on top of it, that Citrix thing or whatever, is still there. And that's because those settings do reside on the device in a directory where it's controlled. So do you have a use case, I guess, Mr. Eric, where you would want it to not retain anything? We could certainly talk through that.
Yeah, I think too, kind of add to that, Chris, there's, if you think about things, and Eric that says yes, so Eric, if you want to throw that in chat, we can talk through it. But, think about it, there's kind of like two ends of the spectrum. All the way on this side, you've got, you give somebody either, a persistent VM or you give them a laptop with no administration on it. It's the Wild West. They can go out there, download whatever they want, get infected with tons and tons of viruses. On the other side of that coin, you have generally, what we all can think of as zero client that is quote unquote no OS, although that's not really true. There is technically an operating system there. But now on the one side, I have total anarchy, but no, I have no ability to manage it. On the other side, I have a lot of management, but I have no features, right? If something like the Teams optimization comes out where I want to have like video conferencing in my VDI scenario, I can't do that in a zero client generally. I can do it, but it's going to be terrible performance. Igel kind of is nicely further to the one side from a security standpoint, but giving you the features of that Windows device, having things like, hey, Citrix comes out with the new Microsoft Teams optimization, or Zoom comes out with the new Zoom offload optimization. I'm not hardware defined in my ability. I'm software defined. I can use that same piece of hardware, not an older thin client, and I can deploy things like Teams and Zoom to it because all of my settings are software defined, but they're locked down and secure, similar to the zero client, where whatever I tell this device to do, whatever settings I turn off, that's it. It's a master slave environment between the UMS and that endpoint. There's no wiggle room. I can lock it down as much as I want, or I can give a little leniency, but it's up to the administrator.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I wanted to try to address Eric's question here that I had proposed because I spent 2 years trying to work in federal environments where we did have very highly secure scenarios where they did not want much anything, and so the focus there is really like if you go back to your UD Pocket, first of all, nothing personal, none of that stuff is kind of being saved. I mean, a lot depends on how you set this thing up. But if we shadow the device again, if you I think you're still shadowing it.
Right here.
Right. So, we've got a whole bunch of information on security and kind of how this all works. But if use cases where the only thing they walk up to is they get to this, and when they're ready to start their day, they authenticate. And maybe it's through MFA, like you saw when Patrick brought up the Citrix Workspace app. He logs in, and then he's going to have a two-factor auth in there. This is the only thing. The user can't get to anything else, and there's nothing saved here. I could walk around the corner to a device that has the exact same setup, or as we often would say, this device could go out the door and be stolen or whatever. There's nothing on there that's going to allow somebody to get in to do anything at all. There's a lot of that can be done. Unlike if I'm saving local files to it, which is not happening, because that's not what's going on. Wallpapers and background and all that stuff. I mean, that makes it unique. That's there. The Citrix icon and all those settings are there. So probably if you want, maybe have a separate conversation, talk through your specific use case and see if there's a fit here. I'll let Patrick try to log in during a live demo. Let's see if he can make it happen. Always, that's right.
The one thing to say, whether you're looking for a zero client experience or an almost Windows endpoint experience or anything in between, if there is a thin client operating system vendor that has it, it's Igel. That's the blanket statement that is 100% true.
Thank you, Andy. So Patrick got in, and now he's launching his cloud desktop. I want one of those, by the way. Not that I don't have one. But but yeah, this is it. So he's got this and all the plugins and the pieces, and this is where Liquidware, getting analytics data can show you, hey, what is the user experience score on this UD Pocket running on the LG Gram or that old laptop that he picked up instead,
Yeah, because
Patrick,
it's difficult. Sorry, Andy,
is that Andy?
Which virtual desktop did you go into?
So I went to the regular cloud desktop.
The one, is that the one with the GPU enabled?
It is for Teams, I believe, but not for Zoom. Yep.
No, click down on no GPU enabled. Click down on the little carrot in the bottom right corner.
Okay.
Right there.
There. Let me pull this up so you guys can see it.
So yeah, there's the NVIDIA stuff, right? No.
Which one? Video there? I can't see.
No, it's not. You're not in the one with the GPU enabled. I was going to show that. Okay, you're using a thin client. I'm not sure it's a virtual machine, so it's got to be low end hardware. We're using a smart operating system that's connecting to a powerful virtual desktop with 16 gigs of memory, 2 to 4 cores, GPU enabled. I mean, it's a near native high end desktop experience, but using a smart managed thin operating system.
Yeah, and that's what's really cool is like I said, we had a call with Microsoft just a couple of days ago. These are the folks that are selling the cloud PC solution, for example. They are getting requests for a repurposing of existing hardware. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Like all the things that they were saying, hey, we got people asking us, they want to go to this thing that just showed up here on Patrick's desktop, but they got all these other pieces of equipment that can they convert them? Can they, so they're trying to figure out what is the right endpoint. And we're telling them Igel can really help you there. And then as he pulls up and he's creating an AVD session, it's really just a matter of point, click, check, whatever, and having tools again like Liquidware to now give you metrics and data. What is that user experience actually are they truly getting what we told them they'd be getting? It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, because there's SLAs like for your Windows and cloud PCs and things like that you want to make sure are being met upstream, and we can help you know that. Because one thing Stratosphere will do is it avoids finger pointing when you are in these environments where there's quite a few moving parts to give you a superior end user experience. When someone calls the help desk and they say their machine's slow, well, that could be several things. It could be that you don't have graphics GPU enabled or an enabled experience on that desktop that you need to have that and upgrade that in the cloud. Or it could be something as simple as a work from anywhere user too far away from a Wi-Fi access point, and they're connected using the Edge OS. So it's not Igel's fault that they're out by the swimming pool and they're trying to do some graphics intensive stuff, right? And so that's where Stratosphere will be able to find root cause really quick in the ongoing environment. We talked about it in assessments, but when we've got this embedded agent in there, we can give you a composite user experience score, and then we can drill down and we can avoid the finger pointing and get to the root cause of any kind of interruption in user experience as quickly as possible, and then see if it's not only this individual person, but is it an entire group of people that are having this issue, and you can fix it and head off problems before before multiple people even call the help desk.
But Jason, the reality is that user does think it's an Igel issue and does not think it's the fact they're sitting by the pool. You need tools that prove it.
Right. Exactly.
That's a good point. One of the best scenarios, because from my prior days before Igel, when I first met Jason, we'd often get why is it taking so long to log in? And one of the scenarios using Liquidware's tool was they figured out that, it wasn't just getting it when the desktop was loading or whatever, there were GPO conflicts going on inside of that VM. And that was what was causing the slowness. It wasn't the endpoint at all, or even the network in most cases.
Yeah.
But without that intelligence, it's a lot of finger pointing, and you don't know what really is going on until you have tools like this.
Yeah, you're talking about that healthcare federal deal?
Probably.
Going way back. And Privado was getting the blame.
Everybody.
Profile Unity was getting the blame, which is our solution. And then we came in there with Stratosphere, and the thin clients were getting the blame too. We came in there with Stratosphere, and we were able to see that, yes, it was several policies outside of Profile Unity that were hanging up the login for individual users. So it got to the root cause really quick in a meeting full of 20 people. It was an all hands on deck call, and it was, put back on, the internal team and their policies, but they could fix it really quickly, and we could get to that root cause. And you can't, when you don't have the visibility to all parts of your virtual infrastructure, it's very difficult to see that. And that's exactly what this arrangement we have with Igel does. We have an arrangement with AVD, with the cloud PC folks up there, with Windows 365, with Citrix for VMware. We've worked in this industry a long time to take care of all those variables with specific things that run out there and that look for those metrics.
Yeah, we usually compare if you don't have the full visibility, and for us it's a big thing to have visibility into every single areas that impact the desktop experience. It's like finding a fire with your being blind. You kind of throw water in one place, but you really don't know if that's the root cause or not. I wanted to add also that intelligence and brain powers plays a role too. So with folks, for example, from Zentegra, if you combine the intelligence, the data itself, and somebody that can read through that and understand the architecture of a desktop, especially a virtual or cloud desktop where you have Igel involved on the front end, Igel might be the one that, hey, it's the new component, we added that to infrastructure, that's slow, it's because of Igel. But if you combine the full visibility, so understanding the network, the hardware, the endpoints, the target desktop, the storage, even the host on the back end, and as Jason mentioned, GPUs and domain, then you can't really have the full picture. So if you combine all of them together, that's where magic happens.
Yeah, Thomas, that's a great point. I mean, and I think probably I see there's 36 attendees. We have 35, we got 5 panels here. I'd say all 40 of us have been in that position where somebody is coming at us because there's a problem in our environment and our customer's environment, and we just don't have the data. So it just makes your life easier to have that type of visibility, to have those metrics. So when someone comes to you and say, hey, what, this is going on, I can quickly go into the Liquidware panel, to the console, and say, hey, I run a report. Wow, okay, here's an issue with latency. Here's an issue with, that there's not enough RAM on the device. It's spiking, the CPU spiking. Having that data in your arsenal is just absolutely, it's priceless. It's something that we all need.
And sometimes it's not about finding the issue, but it's proving the issue. I have one project in mind where I think I'm working with Zentegra on that, where our main contact at the customer know what the issue is. It's antivirus, but he needs to prove it to the antivirus people within in his organization to show that, yes, the antivirus is causing the dropout in connection. So to get the data, sometimes it's not just about finding the issue, although it's nice, but sometimes you know what the issue is and you need the backend data on backend to prove it. Have the clear picture, see that's what's happening on the backend, this is what's happening. So the ability to rule by data instead of by feeling and perception is, in my mind, priceless.
100%. And well, guys, look, I'm going to do a time check here. We have 3 minutes left. So I want to just kind of stop here. I want to thank everybody for joining. I see you in the chat, by the way. Mike Fergus says, great demo. Mike, great to see you. Good, great to see you, an old friend. Nick, you're welcome. Thanks for joining. Guys, I just want to thank all you guys for joining this. We're looking to do this monthly, and we want to keep these workshops technical. We want to keep them live. If you have any questions you want to throw in the chat, we can follow up with you afterwards. Also, if there's any topics you're interested in, that are related to Igel, we'd love to hear your feedback. And by all means, anything Igel or Liquidware, if you saw something today that you said, wow, you know what, I could really use that in my environment, I'd like to take a look at that, please reach out to Zentegra. We would love to get that set up for you. We would love to help you get, a POC going to prove out those components. We work very closely with Igel and Liquidware. And so thank you guys, and panelists, thank you. Any closing words, any closing thoughts?
What's our next topic, Patrick? Did we already talk about that?
We did. So our next topic, I believe it's on April 14th, will be hardening the Igel OS. So we're going to be really focusing on security. So if you guys would like to, take a look at that, if you're an Igel customer thinking about it, look at all, kind of to one of the questions earlier, how do I harden that OS? How do I make it so locked down that my security team is like, yeah, that's the solution we need. That's going to be our focus next time.
Awesome. Looking forward to that one.
Thanks for asking us to come on. We appreciate it. We do these workshops also with Zentegra for FlexApp, our application attachment technology. So look for those coming up. I don't see them on the calendar right now, but we will add one of those soon, I'm sure. And those are very successful. It tells you how to keep your base images clean. And so there's a plug for that one coming up soon, I hope.
For sure. Thank you for joining, Jason. Thank you, Chris. Andy, any parting words for us?
I would just double down on the idea that people would be great if they showed up and send us maybe ahead of time some topics. And look, if we need to go left, even though we plan to go right and cover things as a group on this call, that plus the idea of the podcast that we run and making sure everybody's aware of the Igel community. I don't know if you guys covered that before I jumped on or not, but a lot of Igel resources out there that revolve around Igel, and Zentegra is a heavy participant in that.
Yeah, one last link in the chat, because this kind of is a conglomeration of all that's going on in the Igel community. I'll paste it here. Definitely give it a check. Archives.igelcommunity.com. And on that site, they actually have, what's really cool is there's a lot of stuff going on in the Slack community, but anything that's happening there that you on the homepage on that, you can kind of see what's being discussed, or you can do a search and do keyword search and see what's been discussed, and there'll be a link. Ultimately, you would want to join the Slack community and kind of see what's going on. But there's I think honestly, it's probably 7,000 people are in that community now. But there's a lot there. Vendors like Liquidware are actually there to help answer questions from the Igel Ready program. So certainly a resource there for you. There's a lot of Igel community, Igel fans, and we certainly want to provide them resources to help them. So
we should give a plug too for Igel Disrupt. All those road shows are about to kick off in the States. They start in May
Yep.
5th in Boston. I'm looking at, you've got them on your site. We've got them on our events page for Liquidware, but we're going to we'll have representation at every single one of those. We're speaking at 4, and I'm sure you're going to be at many of them too, Chris.
I'll know when I know.
Yep. Boston, Minneapolis, Pittsburgh, Nashville, Newport Beach, Tampa, Washington, D.C., Seattle, and there's 2 locations in Canada. So there's a good chance that we're going to be close to you. We'd like to see you in person. If you can come out, we'd like to see you.
There's a lot that will be shared, especially some new stuff that's being worked on. A lot of exciting things happening this year. So stay tuned.
All right. Great. Well, listen, guys, again, thank you for joining. Thank you everybody for joining, and hopefully we can meet in person at one of these events. We plan to do some of these events live at some point. So by all means, feedback on topics, on maybe a location. You're like, hey, we should do it here. We'd love to hear from you. So we'll go ahead and close out here, guys. Have a great rest of the week. Remember to use those Grubhub gift cards. They expire tonight at midnight. So if you don't use them by midnight, you don't get a meal. So by all means, go eat some lunch, have it for dinner. But have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend. And thank you again, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Take care, guys.